One. Good morning, good afternoon. It's noon, right? So we're I guess in the middle. My name is Michael Tucker, and welcome to the Marketo User Group Roundup for September of 2020. I'm joined with my co-host Warren Stokes. Warren, say hi.
Howdy, mostly Americans, I think we've got today, which is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I think you're right. I think we do for sure. We want to welcome everybody who is in the crowd today, and thank you for joining us live to be able to participate in our monthly roll-up of all of the different Marketo user groups that happen in the month of September. We're doing this as a service. We know how busy you are as digital marketers, especially in this day and age, as everybody's transitioning their marketing communications to digital. Once a month we get together with a wonderful group of rotating panelists who are Marketo user group leaders to be able to cover off all of the different topics and events that happen in the Marketo space within an hour. And we're not doing a complete detail, but it's really just to give you a high level summary of the topics so that you can go back and review some of the recordings of those sessions. And then looking forward, you can see some of the upcoming sessions as well too. Joining with us today, we have our panelists this month. We have Andy Carone from Revenue Pulse, who is the Marketo User Group co-leader for Chicago, Illinois, US, in the Midwest of the United States, and Courtney Toby, who is the Marketing Automation Manager for Avid Exchange here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and has recently been named the co-leader for the Charlotte Marketo User Group. Would love to turn it over to each of you to kind of give an introduction to yourselves and more importantly, and also your user groups, and just tell us what, why people should join a user group, your user group, and sort of what you're producing and what happens at your user group. Andy, let's kick it off and start with you.
Yeah, so excited to be here today. So I've been running the Marketo user group since about mid 2017, which makes me at this point, I think, the longest standing of the leaders that we have currently. So for me, I'm a consultant in Marketo. I am a champ this year, which is really exciting and fun. And then obviously the user group, which has been such a pivot in 2020 compared to what the normal process and sort of type of events and content that we cover. So prior to 2020, we were doing sort of an every other month thing. And then the off months, we were trying to either do like a digital webinar type event or some sort of just socializing happy hour type thing. Our focus is really around useful content that has no sales spin, is not driven by vendors, is really focused on things you can take home and put into your own instance and that will make your life easier and better. And sometimes a little bit more complicated, but cooler. So just depending on where you are in your, maturity curve with automation. We try to make sure that the content that we're providing kind of has like a beginner, intermediate, and advanced component to it as we go. So it really does serve everyone. Although I think probably one of my favorite sessions that we've had was a Valentine's adjacent session that was heartbreaking Marketo stories. And we invited all of our users to come in and share their own heartbreaking Marketo events that had happened in their lives. I personally had to actually video my submissions and send them in because I had just had a baby. So I didn't actually get to be there for that, but just the concept in general was really awesome. So obviously, we've focused heavily, almost exclusively this year on virtual events. I think for me, the user group is now an opportunity to give back because I remember 2012 when I went to my first user group as this like new instance noob, like no idea what the heck I was doing. Please help me. I have this weird question and support looks at me like I'm nuts. Like, can you tell me why this does this or doesn't do this or whatever it is? And so having had that initial introduction to the user group way back when Chicago was one of the earliest groups, it was really cool to be able to go on the other side of that and be the one to help people that were coming in with that like familiar, I knew it look of like lost, please help me on their faces, and help them get into the system. So.
Yeah, that's gosh, we're really grateful to have, you and Brooke and everybody else in your team basically that are producing consistent content during this time. And also we hear it from a lot of the different attendees and the different users around the community that part of the reason why they choose Marketo over other marketing automation platforms is the robustness of the community and what that provides. Let's go to Courtney Toby, and Courtney, you're I think you might be our newest Marketo User Group leader to kind of join the community, and super grateful to have you join us and then to help with a refresh renewal of the Charlotte Marketo User Group. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about, some of the ideas and your co-leader and kind of what's coming up in store in the Charlotte community over the next little bit here.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Courtney Toby. I've worked in Marketo for almost 8 years now, just crazy. Like Andy and Warren, got to know them through the Champion program this year, which was awesome. Andy is the longest, I guess, standing mug leader, and I am the newest, apparently. So really
I'm
happy.
Definitely not the oldest mug leader.
So I'm very happy to be a part of this group. And I was a member of the Charlotte MUG when I moved to Charlotte about 5 years ago now. And recently it sort of transitioned in leadership. So now I'm helping Christine, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Felvad.
So I think that's right.
Okay, that's what I thought. She works for Udemos, and she's based out of Greenville, South Carolina. And we have plans to sort of bring it back and launch Charlotte MUG again on October 15th, where Michael is actually going to be our first speaker, which is awesome. He's going to be talking about customer welcome sequences. And so we're just really excited. Previously, the Charlotte MUG was just a great opportunity to network and get to hear about what other people in Charlotte were doing. It's a smaller community of Marketo users. And so for me, it was always just a great opportunity to find, my people who also get equally as like excited about automating manual processes and program tokens as I do, and hear the cool things that they're doing. And so we're very excited to be able to expand our reach and reconnect with those individuals in Charlotte in this new virtual environment, and are hoping at some point when things go back to normal to be able to have some of that social aspect of the Marketo user group as well, because I do feel like that's such an important piece of this community. At least back in the day, it was to like have the opportunity to connect with those people in real life as well. So, but this is a great alternative for now.
So I have a question for both Courtney and Andy, actually. Do you think you'll continue the virtual even though when we go back to live? So, because I noticed, like, particularly you, Andy, you try and get people involved and people to share their faces, names, experience. You guys do that really well in Chicago. So a question to both of you, you think you're going to continue the virtual side as well when we go back to, well, normal?
Yeah, I mean, we always kind of have had that virtual aspect of things to be able to offer content more frequently without having to have people take a train to get into the session, or if, they can only take an hour out of their day or half an hour or whatever it is. I think that's helpful to stay present within the community and relevant. So yeah, I don't see that going away. I am very excited, though, for the idea of being able to actually stand across from someone with some sort of beverage and kvetch about Marketo, because I think that's the component of the user groups that is now kind of missing a little bit. It happens more organically when people are in a room, especially when you throw in a couple of cocktails, where it's more of like Marketo therapy, you know what I mean? And I think user groups really used to provide that. And it's hard to have that organic translate into the virtual. At least that's been my experience thus far. So.
Yeah,
Mm.
I would agree. I think what Christine and I have talked about is more of like a hybrid model, like maybe doing a webinar virtual experience 1 month and a sort of networking with some educational aspect the next month in real life. Because I do think even when we were doing in-person events in Charlotte, it was hard to get people there every time because we were asking them to take an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours of their day. And a lot of times it was over lunch, and that's like a lot of time, like valuable time that people have with meetings and just accomplishing things at the office. So this is like an easier forum to just get on, listen and learn, and the recording aspect as well. I definitely think that's something we'd like to continue even when we go back to real life, because it just is huge to be able to go back and reference that content, and even share it with like other, like I was watching the Silicon Valley mug earlier today, and like be able to just pass that right along to like my developer and be like, oh my gosh, this is awesome stuff, we need to start trying. So yeah, I really think it's a great idea to keep continuing with that moving forward as well.
Great.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you mean. The why don't you try the script? Oh, you need to try it now. That one. Yeah, with John Bolton. We'll get
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of good to note too that Warren and I are also Marketo User Group leaders, and our mugs are virtual only actually. So but I do think that they complement each other, and I think I've been in this probably about maybe 6 months after Andy, but interesting to kind of see how we have more content now that's coming out of this situation, given the ability to be able to find speakers and kind of connect with people all over the place. And then also, I mean, we don't, Charlotte's a substantial city, but it's not as big as Chicago, for example, and spread out as or Houston or other cities as well too. So kind of neat to be able to kind of get people together from all corners of these giant cities that are using Marketo. We are going to dive into a lot more detail on some of these different events and that we're alluding to here, and we have a fair amount to go through. So, want to just jump through really quickly some ongoing announcements and some events that are coming up. So, if you are watching this from our YouTube channel and you want to participate in some of the future events that are coming up, as well as look at some of the other events that have already happened in this that we're talking about in this month. We're going to go through some of those really quickly right now. And if you have any questions on them, feel free to reach out to us. Probably big announcement that's happened over the past couple of weeks. Adobe Summit. If everybody remembers that, we used to pile into a convention center in Las Vegas and then previously in San Francisco. That has been announced that next year, as well as it'll be similar format to what we did this year, what they did this year, I should say, which will be a virtual format. Good news though is that it's free, so you can attend at no cost and then tap into some of the brightest minds in the Adobe Experience Cloud community, and within that, within the Marketo Engage software platform, and then learn about all of the different tricks and resources and some of the wonderful developments that are happening here. So date that is confirmed for that is April 13th to the 15th, 2021. There's so much content to cover in here. Warren, I really think we should, this is a later conversation, but we should probably look at probably doing a roundup specifically for all the different events there. But it's massive. So if you are looking at your calendar, book those 3 days off, because frankly, there's enough content to be able to cover there, and then enough key announcements around product development that happen during those 3 days that it's worth your while to invest that time to be able to keep up to date on all of those happenings, so that you can incorporate them into your business, whether that's on the client or the services side of things.
I would say as well that there's probably going to be then a Marketo little drop down where you're going to be able to see the specific Marketo events, because they tried to cover a lot of different Adobe tools, and I imagine it's going to be a similar thing, right? Because it's called the Adobe Summit, obviously. So it'd be interesting to try and find those Marketo ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a massive learning experience for sure. And we'll have more as come. This is the first announcement that we've seen about this event for next year, so stay tuned. Oh, and also you probably should have mentioned, if you're interested, summit.adobe.com is really where we're grabbing a lot of this information from. So I should have put that in here, but go to that part of the website, and that's where you'll get the latest updates from the Adobe team. so these events that we're going to be talking about over the next hour here are events that have happened in the past. So they're in September. If you see and hear something that you're really interested in topic wise, we have been aggregating all of the recordings that for the user groups that have been making recordings into one unified YouTube channel. So if you go on YouTube, you can search and find it on marketovirtualusergroups.com. I've set up a quick redirect from my website at conversionstore.com/video. And basically what we do is we aggregate, again, all of the different videos that are recorded. And so you can go to this one YouTube channel, find recordings from, what we're doing in the manufacturing virtual mug, Warren, what your group is doing in Europe, and, Andy and other Marketo user group leaders, we're aggregating those all into one spot so you can quickly find them and then get to the content that you're interested in. And then also so that YouTube will recommend, if you liked this particular topic in Marketo, then here's a different space that you can look at as well too. Okay, and then just looking at all the different mugs in September, kind of neat. Just kind of looking at how we deal with the different content. August is always kind of a sleepy, quieter month per se. People are kind of out on vacation, and then suddenly that first turnover in September happens, and Labor Day happens, and then you see an explosion of activity. And I feel like that's kind of been the case here for September as well too. And so we've jumped up by a couple of extra mugs. It's actually I think part of it is not just the quantity of mugs, but a lot of the August mugs were happy hours, I think it's fair to say. And in this month, you see a lot more content that's coming into the fray. So we're at 15 of them, and that's, anywhere between 60 and 90-minute meetings. And that can be, 15 to 24 hours of mugs that we're going to try and cover in 1 hour here. So it's a fair amount of content, and we have to be brief and quick about it, but we'll try to give you as quick a rundown as we possibly can in order to be able to keep you up to speed on what's happened so that you can use that for your own learning. And so this was really the calendar that we have covering off for what was covered off in September here. A lot of different events that stand out here. And, Warren, kind of scanning through this list, what are some of your initial thoughts about looking back on September at some of the different mugs?
Well, there's a lot of variations of different topics, actually. There's some really interesting strategic ones going from the new UX right through to Jason, who's on the call with the memes. There's like varieties in terms of kind of centralizing data. There's some really, really great topics that have been in September, and a lot of the recordings are available. So yeah, just calling that out specifically.
Yeah, definitely really, really interested in kind of seeing the discussions that kind of come out of this month. Let's start off with a couple of them and dive into some of these. And I think probably a big one to kind of talk about that affects all of us would be probably the NAV mug and the discussion on the Marketo user experience. And because I think we were all present at that one, and that was highly promoted by Adobe to be able to kind of say, hey, this is the inside track on what's happening down the product development lifecycle, or the roadmap, excuse me. And so we'd love to kind of get some input from everybody really on, what the new what was covered in the new UX, and then, some of the things that you're seeing that are specifically going to, that you're going to be keeping an eye out for the different Marketo instances that you're working in. Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so where the product is headed, I think is really interesting. Obviously, they're rolling out the new tree. Marketo Ball is going away. Drag and drop is going away, which seems to be causing a flurry of comments. So for some reason, that's the one that everyone's like kind of about. I think they're really just trying to give us something that is clean, a little bit closer in line with a lot of the other Adobe products as far as accessibility. The way that it functions in general is definitely more in line with that and makes a lot of sense. I think this was part of what Sky was originally intended to do. And so they're delivering on some of those asks and also some of those sort of goals, which is great. I think that if you have workspaces, if you have partitions, if you have a more robust and or complicated instance, that you probably want to make sure that you're very clear about when those changes are rolling live, and that you have a plan on how you're going to introduce those to anyone on your team that's also using the tool, and when you're going to push those live into your environment, how that might impact your deliverables. So,
yeah. Have any of you been upgraded to the new user experience yet? I don't think it's everybody that's been upgraded yet, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of the second wave in.
Started at the beginning of September, and they'll be rolling through, I think, to the end of the year for some instances that are more complex.
Okay. Yeah, and we should also preface too, right? Drag and drop is just going away for the short term, but I think it's scheduled to be back for 2021, if I remember correctly, right?
There is a recognition within the community that people are not super thrilled about losing it altogether. It is not an accessible feature, right? But it is something that people are used to having, and there's a lot of use cases where the outliers are just inescapable. So
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah, I would add to that too, like in the Champ forum that we had a few weeks ago, we were able to sort of provide some feedback on like how we mostly use the drag and drop feature. And it did sound like they were going to take that into account as they're thinking about rolling that back out.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things they were clear about is that people that operate within workspaces are going to be different workspaces and partitions are going to be moving over in the 2021. So some of the smaller instances I've worked with already have the new UI, and so there's people making their own little Chrome extensions as well, I should add, to bring the purple back in and stuff like that, which I posted on the Mop Slack. But it's interesting. You have to get used to the non-drag and drop. But what Andy and both Courtney echoed, I think there was a bit of an understatement that I think a lot of the champs were very vocal about the drag and drop. So I expect something to come off that, if nothing.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's good discussions. I think there'll be a lot more, that it's interesting to see that that's a communication channel that the Adobe product team is using through the Marketo User Group. So all the more reason to join a Marketo User Group and to kind of sign up on the mugs.marketo.com site to kind of get involved in that. And let's dive back in and then talk about a couple of other ones. There's a couple of meetings that I think we're missing at the beginning of this session too.
I was gonna say, I feel like half of most of what I attended is not on this list, which is probably my bad because I didn't actually send it over. I realized this morning, I was like, did I send a list to Michael of what I attended? So probably.
I forgot to, Andy, don't worry.
Yeah, I've got one from the 3rd. I've got the 15th, which is the comedy one, which is amazing. We have him on the call, and then 2 from the 16th, and then the 29th is on here, I think, but the 9:31, I don't even know if that is or isn't.
Yeah.
Sure. There were so many this month, and I think also with the holiday and everything else, it was pretty crazy too. So
I think it's a good point too. Trying to keep up on these slides is kind of a challenge. So all the more reason to go to the mugs.marketo.com site, because that's going to be the updated directory basically for all of the different mugs, for sure. But I'd love to start out on the Houston one too. The one on the 3rd, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was looker.com, and they were kind of going through kind of being able to centralize your data for visualization purposes. And were both of you on that? Courtney, I think you were on that one, right? Were you on there, Andy?
I did the Houston one. That was how Citrix scales email creation in Marketo. It was Citrix and NAC.
Okay, good. Great that they have 2 of them that are going on. Andy, were you in? Who was in the Looker one? Excuse me.
Neither of us, apparently. So maybe a thought for future months is like, let's look at the list beforehand and pick who gets to. Because I think this month was just crazy. I know there were a number that I signed up for, and like I'm still waiting on the recording, or it just happened. I haven't gotten to watch it yet. It was a little crazy.
Yeah, I was there. So let me kind of pivot to that
Please.
one then.
Yeah,
So,
let's
uh,
roll.
this is a beautiful thing about kind of having kind of a mix and a rotation of multiple people to be able to cover off. The sun never sets in a Marketo user group. But what the third was about was really, so Looker.com is a business intelligence tool. I don't use it myself, so it was kind of neat to be able to get an introduction to the product and to learn a little bit more about what it does. And basically, there's two experts that were kind of going through the demonstration. I think I can't remember if both of them are in the champs. I think they are. I think Ocean Lee was one of the presenters there, so she's in that class. And basically, what they're doing is they were presenting a project where they used Google BigQuery and then pulled that information out of their Marketo instance and then out of a Salesforce instance, and then amalgamated those two together to be able to go through a series of different visualization reports. And it was really neat to be able to kind of hear some of the different questions that they had. Amanda and I both asked them about different ways that they organize that data. And then, when you're trying to combine data from multiple sources, which is a big strength of the product, you also run into issues about like kind of matching and deduplication, right? So if you have specific records in Marketo and then you have kind of records in Salesforce where there's maybe two or three contacts that relate to that same that same marketing activity. How do you kind of mix and match that information? So that was a piece of the conversation there. Does anybody use Looker, or anybody gone through a project like that where you've had to do kind of a
Yeah,
visualization project?
yeah. So I built some looks before, and I know that Looker got bought by Google, which is probably why they were discussing it, right? And it's relatively easy to use once the data's in there, but it's kind of a data lookup kind of tool. It's very easy to use actually, but I didn't catch all of that, but the recording is available on the mugs.marketo.com already on that one as well. So it's worth catching those Google folks.
Okay, great. Good, good, good. Well, let's keep on with Houston then, since both Andy and Courtney were on that one, and love to hear about the Citrix one. That one I didn't go to, so so jump in, guys. Tell me a little bit about what the Citrix event was about.
This was a Courtney only thing.
Oh,
Oh.
it's Courtney.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I covered
Not
one.
the ones I went
So this one was interesting. It was Knack and Citrix, and Knack is essentially a product that sort of allows you to empower your marketing users to build email templates outside of Marketo. So essentially, Citrix was on there talking about how they recently transitioned their email marketing program builds from having just like a marketing ops team handle the intake form request, do the build, go back and forth with Q&A, and then actually send out the emails. And instead now are using Knack to basically give all of their like product marketers or campaign managers, what we call them at my company, the ability to build their own email templates. And Knack allows you to sort of like indicate which modules you want them to be able to use for the different types of emails that you're sending out, like adhere to like lock down brand standards. So you would give permissions to different users based off of what you want them to be able to go in and edit. And also a tool like Knack ensures that even if a user is making changes, that everything is going to render correctly in like an Outlook or a Gmail, all the different clients. And so basically, the marketing campaign manager can own the whole creation of the email, do their own QA, and then Knack allows them to then push the email and create a program in Marketo as well directly from that tool. So then the marketing operations person just has to go in, set up the logic, execute the send. So it was really interesting learning about that tool and how Citrix was using it, and in my own just like evaluation of these sorts of things. Stencil is another one that's very similar. It just sounds like a great way if you're a small marketing operations team and you want to give your marketing campaign managers more ability to take some ownership in the email campaigns that they're building. This is a way to do it to ensure they don't go completely rogue, completely off brand, and that they're not putting in images that are going to render incorrectly in the different email clients as well.
Nice, nice. That's super nice. Moving from Houston to over to the Milwaukee, like how like for reference, not that I'm looking for a transition here, but how close is Milwaukee to Houston? It's not far, right?
Not
I've no idea.
Really close. If it was not 2020, you could totally go to both.
Oh, okay. I mean, again, no reference, and I'll continue to have no reference until sometime I get education.
Milwaukee is north of Chicago.
Okay, and that still means nothing to me, which is.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but Jason is on the call actually, and he did his memes, which everyone loved. And if you don't follow Jason on LinkedIn as well, some of just the things just make me laugh out loud, which I just constantly send to my colleagues as well. Jason, do you want to sort of chip in and your thoughts around that? Were you asked to do that, or did you go, you know what I want to do? I want to share some awesome memes with people. How did that happen?
Actually, Jay, who's the MUG leader from Milwaukee, asked that I do it, and I said I'd be happy to. So, yeah, I don't know, and it was kind of an interesting thing. I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I had fun doing it. So, hope people enjoyed it. Glad to hear you did.
Yeah, no, totally. I think one of the things I really enjoyed about it is that you actually connected it to some Marketo learning as well. So you tied in these loose kind of comments to the meme about actually that was something that was actually really valuable, which I think was a really interesting approach. And not only did you make it really fun and entertaining, because you could see people laughing on the call as well, and people muting because they were laughing so much. So it was really interesting to get that tie in as well. And also, I think you've got the memes site as well, like that you put up. I don't know the web address.
Mopsmemes.com.
Nice.
I think my favorite one was the Nickelback change score. Like if you have friends who like you find out they like Nickelback, automatically change their person score like minus 100. That was hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good ones, including the one you just published recently about the Terminator one. Does your mum work in Mops?
That's my favorite. That's my new favorite format, at least.
Yeah.
Jim, where do you get your ideas? Like, where what's influencing you, and how are you able to kind of keep so positive with everything that's going on right now?
I steal a lot of stuff from Reddit, basically. So if you're on Reddit, make sure you are part of the meme economy subreddit. So that's where I get a lot of the format ideas, and then just kind of working in marketing automation gives me, I see how they can be repurposed to fit that purpose. So that's kind of all there is to it. Okay,
sounds good. So it's plagiarism for a good cause.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not stealing, what people are saying, but definitely the formats. I just find them hilarious. I crack up all the time at some. I mean, sometimes you don't even need content, and you just see the image format, and it's hilarious. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. We really appreciate it, especially right now. It's a really good time for that.
Well, thank you.
Andy, pick. Why don't you pick one? Tell us one of the ones you went to, and give us a recap.
Yeah, so I popped in on one of the Marketo Q&A sessions that happens weekly for New York. And it was such an interesting experience to be in that sort of different format where it's a little bit office hours, it's open format, they're not coming in with set topics. It's like, what are you dealing with right now? And it was so funny because I literally, while I was on that call, they were talking at that point. This was, I jumped in on the 9/16 one. They had this conversation about the integration between Marketo and specifically Salesforce. And the person who was calling in was having challenges around getting their organization to be comfortable with and or have faith in the integration between those two systems. And at the same time, literally, like, the universe could not have been more like, here you go. I had a client who's slacking me saying they think that the integration is the problem, and that's that there's stuff in Marketo that we're not getting, and like it's the systems, it's, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I literally have like the Yoda of Marketo saying that this is one of the best integrations across all marketing platforms with Salesforce. as I'm watching you Slack me. So probably not your systems, but I'll go check. But like just the universal reinforcement that happened in that particular moment made it probably one of my favorite MUG sessions that I attended the entire month. But I think that more than that, just the format, the having access to these people that I think even a couple years ago kind of seemed untouchable in the community. Although, if I'm being perfectly honest, I have this weird like conspiracy theory that Sandy has created his own like AI to answer things in the community, and that's why he always answers things so quickly. But that's unconfirmed, right? But anyway, I think it's very cool to be able to sort of have that direct access to be able to ask questions the way you would in the community, but maybe not going to the community and hoping someone will see it and respond back, but just, you've got people right there on the phone that have probably been there and can walk you through stuff. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. No, I find it kind of funny actually. For the first, I think, year and a half or 2 years, I actually was convinced that Sandy was in witness protection or something like that. It kind of hides out, and it's interesting seeing him on the MopsCon event. They have the panel of all the speakers, and there's Sandy in sunglasses and like a hat or something like that, kind of hiding out.
Yeah.
So, but you make a great point. It's great to have them both available, and then to give everybody some context too. So this is the New York User Group that happens. It's every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Anybody can join. It's run off of their Meetup site as well as on the Mugs on Marketo site. But it's great because you can just bring any question that you want to them, and then they will just work on that and kind of answer that and open up a discussion topic with them too. So that's a great one.
I think that's similar to a similar kind of format to Seattle with Nate as well. There's really something to be said about those non-recorded sessions. It's a very safe space to really ask questions that you're a bit uncomfortable about in perhaps recorded sessions. And that's definitely one of those, to get questions answered. And they're pretty regular as well, the Seattle ones. I think the Raleigh one is not recorded as well. Michael, you attended that one, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, they're just a hop, skip, and a jump a couple hours away from me here in North Carolina, in the Eastern Seaboard, Warren. But yeah, so Rich French and Carolyn Brown run that one. And then what's really cool about that, part of the reason why it's not recorded, is that Rich is incredibly open about some of the projects that he's working on, and actually takes you into his instance many times and talks about it. So their session this month was around Marketo Sales Insights, and then giving us, he actually went into his instance and actually showed us some of the updated dashboarding and reporting that's available within MSI. And it was really neat to talk about. They have this open discussion where, there are other people who are experts like Kimberly Gallitz and then Gwen Berry, who's, really well known in this part of the world, are in that discussion often, and they're giving a lot of different expertise of things that they've done. So really good from that standpoint. What they have coming up in the next little bit is Rich is actually working on an ABM implementation with 6 Sense and Marketo. And then I think that's the discussion topic that they're going to be bringing up for the next month as well too. So they don't record them because of the sensitive nature of what he's showing us, but he's also, they're incredibly, both of them are very incredibly generous MUG leaders, and they both talk very openly about some of the projects that they're working on from an enterprise standpoint. So it's one of my favorite ones to go to. And hopefully I'm doing some justice to be able to describe some of the things that they're doing here, but I highly recommend that. And then Nate is like that too, right? It's really, really good content.
Yeah. No, definitely. Nate is very similar and very open as well about sharing his knowledge. And he's very specific about not recording as well, because he specifically wants people to ask those difficult questions. And he will literally just like log in and show you some examples of how you can fix things, which I think is fantastic. And they're really big on collaboration as well. So it's not just Nate answering questions, it's actually everyone digs in and mucks in to help this person solve this problem, which I think is just really wonderful about the community side of it.
Mm-hmm. Eddie, do you what's another one that you covered that you could talk about?
So it's one we've already talked about a little bit, but I just wanted to circle back on the Milwaukee MUG because there was a second half of that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah.
And the token session there was really phenomenal. I think if you are a little unsure about how tokens work or you want to use them more, it's a really great crash course on token usage. And I think it's well worth going back and watching if it's something that you didn't see this month. I think we'd be remiss in not mentioning that part of the session, because the second half of that was the, you know, education to the fun, right? There was a lot of educational in the fun, but I think that sort of more deep dive nerd out part was a great way to sort of marry those two pieces together. So really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I liked that one as well because I felt like it was cool to like she actually showed examples of how she was using tokens in their email campaigns at McGraw-Hill, which for me that's always sometimes like the best part of these types of presentations is like exactly what you guys are talking about, like seeing how people like real life examples of how they're doing it in their own marketing programs.
Mm-hmm. I want to jump over to the Europe virtual mug for a second, because I think that you're, you know, Warren, that's your group, but I want to talk a little bit about that too, because you and Chloe are producing some pretty cool stuff, and I think your session this month was a back to school session. Courtney and Andy, were any of you in that one?
Yeah, I watched the recording because I was not up at 6 in the morning my
Yeah,
time to do that at least. But I think this was one of those great usages of the community. And I think this is something that probably other MUG leaders, frankly, are going to steal or you know, acquire and repurpose. So the focus of this was really asking for like a single tip or trick or something that was like a quick win from across the pantheon of experts within the Marketoverse, and then surfacing those all in one place. So it wasn't asking all of these people to take time out of their day to come and be a speaker per se, but it was still utilizing that sort of group base of knowledge. And I can say I actually, you know, learned at least one thing, which, you know, is what we always want from a mug. So I'm always learning, obviously. That's how I think you need to do to stay relevant anyway. But I think it's great when anyone from any walk of their Marketo experience can take something away, and this session definitely provided that. So.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for that feedback as well. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is, because we're always going to be virtual, right? We have to think very specifically about what content we're going to address in each week and utilize the community. And I think I jumped into Marketo and just shared them all, right? I can't remember my own mug, but I definitely jumped into Marketo.
About a month. So yeah, no, everything was live. Yeah. I mean, it was everything from some of the token stuff to how you could pivot and add columns in on like a person report, to addressing some of the stuff that had just happened with the August 31st transition in Marketo, to not retaining some of that data long term. I mean, there was a lot of different stuff in there. Some of it probably that the more technical people may have known, and then other things that they wouldn't have, and vice versa. I think there was a lot of good stuff. I think would you guys do like 10, 12 different tips? I mean, there was a lot of different stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And then next week, well, not next week, next month, it's going to be more strategic. So we're going from technical to strategic to technical, and that's our routine. I just want to, while we're in Europe, just touch on some of the local groups as well, because I know that there is a German and there is a French. I can't speak either of the languages, which is fun. I have tried Google Translate to no avail, but I just wanted to just call them out specifically in the French and German language ones, and they're running regularly now every month. So if you are a German or French speaker, I know Chloe Pott who's a Marketo champion, has spoken at the French ones, and also I think the Montreal, is it the Montreal and French kind of collaborate? Michael, do you know? They collaborate heavily, don't they?
Yeah, so French they're bilingual, but all three of those MUG leaders in Quebec are bilingual and they speak fluent French. So they're often presenting within each other, and I've sent them a couple of new presenters that I've worked with who also speak French as a first language and are expats. So there's a lot of new content that's coming in there, and they're expanding beyond kind of the Paris footprint that they've had to just broadly, and produce French virtual Marketo user group content.
Yeah.
Um,
I also want to jump back over to the pond now. I was just looking at the group, so the sessions, and we had the Dallas MUG, but that was also tied with the Boston and the Silicon Valley, right? Because they had John doing the scripting ones,
mm,
and out of the three of them, the recording is available on the Silicon Valley one, which happened on the 30th, and that was there's a script for it. And basically, I mean, I was on that one, and I asked loads of questions, including what's your most interesting script, John, and he'd written a script to take his kids' recommendations off his Netflix account, for example. Like, I thought that was fun. But on the Marketo front, he had some really interesting scripts ranging from signing up guests using the form but then not cooking it, which I thought was fun. It'd be more fun having that conversation with legal, but still, there was some really great examples there of things that you could just go away and try with your developers. So I'd recommend watching that, and that is on the 30th. That was on the 30th of September. The Silicon Valley MUG. That's where that recording is, but it has been repeated this month, I think, in Boston, the Dallas session, right?
I just added that actually to the YouTube channel this morning too, so you should be able to see that to link to it any from the YouTube channel.
Yeah, John is great. He actually was the first consultant I ever worked with when I was client side and had a consultant. So he and I worked together for about a year and a half. And he's figured out how to do some really cool stuff. I think one of my favorite things he figured out how to do for us was to take a module on a landing page and basically make it so we could take any one module and jump it up on the page above other modules.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the some of the stuff they've done with like custom programming, I think around the YouTube embed too, and the object historically too. They,
Trackable.
they
Yep.
do a lot of
Yeah.
interesting stuff that way.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at time here, and I want to be cognizant of making sure we cover things off. There's a couple of mugs that I want to mention that are rebooting and making some pretty cool changes. One of them, just quickly, is the higher education mug, and so that's been a virtual mug it's been around for a long time, but it's also been dormant for a long time too. So Christine Faxon from NYU is rebooting that one. I went to their happy hour session, and then they also had a session the day before that as well too, that I didn't get a chance to actually attend that one as well too, but they're starting to go through content on how higher education is dealing with the pandemic and some of the communication challenges that are happening there, which obviously is significant given, you can't have 400 people inside of a lecture hall anymore with COVID, or at least to my knowledge anyway. And so they have to have different ways to kind of communicate and then kind of help to introduce some of the more remote learning aspects of the programs that they offer. So kind of interesting to see the content there, but talking with Christine more, they're going to be much more active going forward too. So we're going to be seeing a lot more content that's there, and maybe that coincides with September in terms of the academic year. I'm not sure about that, but kind of neat to see people from academia. Jules James always kind of comes to mind with some of her work in that space with St. Edward's University, and so there's a lot of if you are watching this and you are in a post-secondary institution or even a community college or any sort of an education format, that's a good one to be able to keep in touch with, because they have unique requirements, and so that's part of the reason why Marketo has these virtual ones that deal with specific verticals. The other one that I want to mention as well too, and I'm not sure, I don't think anybody was in this one because it's we're a North American crowd today, but Melbourne, Australia, has gone through kind of a relaunch, and they have two new Marketo User Group leaders there, Santi and Helen. And so, welcome to you both from the land down under. Thank you so much for joining. And they're, heavily sponsored by Blueprint X, which is an agency down there. And so, if you've ever seen content from Veronica Holmes, who was a panelist here on the Roundup a couple of months ago, they went through a lot of different discussions about lead scoring and some new techniques that they had for a client school box that was there to kind of talk through different ways to be able to handle lead scoring. And then, one of the things that I really want to mention too, which is great, Blueprint X sponsored this, and Graham Porter, really hats off to you, sir, for your sponsorship. Most people would provide food and drink. Graham donated $3,500 to the Cerebral Palsy charity for cerebral palsy that they've been supporting on behalf of the Marketo User Group in that space. And I think that's an incredibly noble thing to do from a sponsorship perspective. And it's, I haven't seen, I'm not sure if anybody's done that historically, but I want to say, that's been something great. And I know, Andy, you've been, you're some of the people in Chicago have been doing some philanthropic work and around cancer support and things like that, which I think is worth mentioning. And then, I want to tie this in as well too. The other thing I want to shout out to is Grace Brebner and Josh Pickles in Auckland, who were on that event as well too in Melbourne. So a lot of cool things happening in the Australia New Zealand corridor, and a lot of cool things that are going to be happening in the Marketo community there. And Andy, are you able to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're seeing in your neck of the woods from like a Marketo philanthropic side of things, and just over the years?
I think Andy's had to drop, so she must have had an urgent thing she's got to deal with.
Okay.
But I know that the UK one did donate some money as well at some point. I think I don't even know what month it was now. Like, again, no context of months, years, places, America. But I know that the UK did do that. But I expect we see more of that kind of stuff as well, because there was another Drift presentation. I've seen that one a couple of times. That was on the New York MUG on the 29th as well. I've seen that one a couple of times now. It does provide some value though, but it is one that is quite common. You probably see it every month now, if I'm honest. But that's one to call out. Michael, did you go to the Austin Marketo User Group? That was that had a creative title about everyone deserves a slice of the pie on the marketing attribution one.
I wish it did. Yeah, I wanted to, and I didn't get a chance to. So,
Yeah. I pinged Kimberly to see if they had the recording for it, and she doesn't think that they recorded it either. So, but it sounded like it was a very interesting presentation. I also registered, but was not able to attend. So,
yeah. Maybe the last one I think that I have on my list and was the migration panel that Courtney was gracious enough to sit on and be able to present and talk about the different migrations that were there. I feel like it'd be better if I could actually hand that over to you, Courtney, because was that how many user groups have you presented at? Is that your first user group to present at?
no, that was my second.
Your second? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the event itself and maybe give people a recap of it?
Yeah, so it was three of us on a panel just sort of talking about our unique experiences of migrating from another marketing automation platform to Marketo. And we had someone who was migrating off of Act On, myself, we did a migration off of HubSpot, and then another panel member was migrating off of Adobe Campaign actually onto Marketo. And we shared sort of our learnings, how we gained buy-in internally and presented it to higher up stakeholders, and just some of our pain points that we discovered through the process. And it was interesting, even though we were switching from different platforms, a lot of it was very similar in what we experienced, how we had to go about getting buy-in, and just like best practices in terms of what to look for as you are going through that transition.
Yeah, you definitely want to kind of shout out to just old friends and people that I've worked with historically, Julie Candelon and Naomi Liu for that, and then as well for you sharing and being open about your story, and I think that helps other people as they're doing a migration as well too.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of interesting stuff that is recorded and on the YouTube channel. And I believe that's pretty well everything that we have in terms of the events for this month. Warren, am I missing anything?
Not that I can see. No, I think that's pretty much everything. We've definitely covered all the ones that recorded. You can go back and watch for sure. So yeah, and there's some interesting ones surfacing for next month as well that I'm looking forward to. So yeah, we'll be able to pick up then.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into time here. I don't think we have a group discussion per se, but again, if you want to catch these, excuse me, they're on the YouTube channel. So feel free to go back to the YouTube channel and then take a look at those. And then if you like this video and if you subscribe, on the bottom right, you should see a white Marketo logo. And if you hover over that with your mouse, you'll be able to subscribe to the YouTube channel and then click the bell icon to be able to get notifications of every video that gets posted up on there from all of the different Marketo user group leaders. And then also in terms of upcoming events, feel free to visit mugs.marketo.com. That gives you the overall calendar. This is an old screenshot. I'm sure there's more events that have been published actually in the past several hours. And so that's a good place to be able to sign up and get notifications as well too. We do these sessions on the first weekday of every month. So the next one that we'll be doing is Monday, November the 2nd, and tentatively we've scheduled that at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're reaching out to a couple of Marketo user group leaders to find new panelists for that month. And we want to take a moment to thank Courtney Toby from Avid Exchange and the Charlotte Marketo user group, and then also Andy Carone from Revenue Pulse in the Chicago Marketo user group for their participation as well, and in helping with this month to give us a recap here. And great to have you guys here, and we hope that you'll be willing to come back again and to be able to talk more about the different things that are happening in the Marketo community.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. This was fun.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Go ahead, Warren, please.
No, I was just going to say great stuff, and we're probably going to see people next month, or will tune in, I suppose, next month, or subscribe, should I say. Let me draw attention to that YouTube again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I know it's we're at the hour, so we'll let everybody go. I thank you again for your time today, and then reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you on the 2nd.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.